And we are back yet again for me to ramble on about the one and only One Piece. If you don't know what this series is or what is happening, this is a video series I've been doing that goes over each arc of One Piece that I have read to this particular point. This series is more to capture my initial thoughts, feelings over the course of this One Piece journey of mine as I read the manga. But also kind of, again, to reiterate, show everyone that it is possible to read the One Piece no matter how many chapters there are to it. Like, if I can do it, so can you. However, as you should be able to tell, this is kind of part 3 of this journey of mine, so this is probably not the best place to start if you somehow stumble across this video. Unless you're, of course, caught up. But in case you are skipping an arc or just want to hear some spoiler-free talk, here we go. Even though I do believe you really should read this manga, it's really good. And it has been really great. For the spoiler-free talk, before we get into all the fun and nitty-gritty stuff, I've kind of been a broken record here with saying I've been loving the One Piece journey and what it's building up so far. I'm loving the characters, I'm loving the world building, I'm basically loving it all. I always wondered why people held this series in high regard, but over the course of the last 3 arcs, I sort of understood why they do so. It's got this world building that I don't think is really matched anything out there. It has some amazing characters, and to be completely honest with you all, I think this is the arc that may have sold me on everything that One Piece is and is trying to do, and what it will be. Like I've said, I've loved a lot about everything so far, but Sky Island Saga somehow took everything that's great, or has been great, about over the last 2 arcs, and somehow made them 10 times better here. When I started out on this journey for myself, and to understand why everyone really loved this series, I knew I was going to be in for a treat someday. And to reach that point sort of early on in this arc saga, this vlog saga, whatever we want to call it, really kind of shocked me, to be completely honest with you all. The themes here were top tier, and I hope you stick around to talk about them if you are caught up. Everyone in our crew once again shined bright, and somehow they made me love them even more. And for this overall kind of being one of the more shortest arcs to this point is insane, because it accomplished so much with what it had. I usually have a goal when it comes to reading. I usually try to read a certain amount of chapters, pages, whatever the case may be, depending on if it's actual book, manga, etc, etc. I try to read a certain amount within a given day before, I hit the hay. But during my last stretch of this arc, I literally stayed up to read it because I got so invested. I was so mesmerized by what was happening, what was being shown to me, and just how amazing and fun, well, I don't know about fun, but how amazing this arc was concluding. I was completely blown away. And I initially did lose track of time because it really, really had me hooked. And if you aren't reading One Piece, I really do hope you try and pick it up someday down the road. Because after this, I think I finally understand why people love this series with their whole heart. And I fear now I may become one of them. That may be a good thing though. But more so, I'm so looking forward to what's next on this journey. This is kind of going to be the end of the spoiler-free section. So if you aren't up to date, now is the best time to leave, because now I will be going into spoiler territory and talking about some of the nitty-gritty stuff that's happened inside this arc. But if you do leave here, thank you for listening. Have a great and safe rest of your day. And if you're not having a good day, I hope it is better. And I hope you return to this video when you do get eventually caught up. Alright, okay. Talking about spoilers, so here we go. Let's get down to business, shall we? Jaya's sub-arc, to really kick off this whole Sky Island saga, is and was such a huge joy to read. It does so much setting up this whole Island Saga arc and what may or may not happen, to also dropping details that I have been wondering about for a good while now, about this whole One Piece world that's been happening here. It fed us all of this, and it didn't feel like it overdid it. It was kind of like the perfect platter. The first kind of thing I kind of want to really talk about here is the meeting between the 7 warlords and the Marines. So one of my theories is somewhat right here, to an extent, that the government in some way is playing a hand in these situations that's been happening around the world and what's happening to our main crew. And even though we aren't sure of the exact full extent that's been happening, their hands are here, and they are playing a big role. We got introduced to some very interesting characters, I might say, here. The main one I'm more interested in, even though everyone here is kind of really surrounded by like darkness and uncertainty, is Doflamingo. If you were to ask me right now, I would assume that he is the second in the 7 warlord rankings just by his appearance alone and just the presence that he brings whenever he walked into the room. I think Hawkeye is number 1, but nonetheless, I'm super interested in learning more about him and of course the other warlords, just based off the small and short dialogue and introductions we got from them. Then there's the discussion about replacing Croc, which the name Blackbeard is brought up. Now I know Blackbeard is a sort of folktale in certain areas of the world that gets brought up in some areas, as well as being, of course, a pirate. But when it was brought up here, I was wondering if they are good or bad, because depending on the folktale that you read, Blackbeard's always been one of those characters or mythical beings, whatever you want to call it. Depending on where it's told, he usually is either more than likely told in a bad perspective, but there's also been stories told in a good perspective. So just kind of keep that in mind when we continue with this. We're going to be reiterating this point again down the road. The next kind of main thing I want to discuss that happened in this sub-arc is Shanks and Whitebeard. This was a very short section, and I think it kind of did a lot in hindsight. Till now, Shanks has been one of the toughest and strongest people we have known so far in the story, but it seems even himself is a bit on edge about his meeting with Whitebeard. So that brings up the question, who and how strong is Whitebeard? And if this is the case, who's the one that attacked him and landed that devastating hit? And for a quick second, let's take a step back right now, because I truly believe that when you see someone strong in any story or any sort of fictional being, whatever it is, a game or whatever, you kind of take a step back when you see someone who is like very strong get dealt a huge amount of damage and stuff. It makes you ponder where you are on the scale of things, or the hierarchy when it comes to that. Now, if it was a sneak attack or something of the sorts, then yeah, you can just toss that up to luck. But even then, if it was a sneak attack, if Whitebeard is this powerful person as it is kind of being portrayed to be so far, how could this have happened to him? And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how it did happen and kind of getting more used to him and hopefully seeing him more around. Because again, a lot of these characters are so unique. They look so cool, and their introductions always make me want to know more about them right off the rip. Now, the big part of this sub-arc is Mocktown, and plus that short little time we spent in sea before getting to Mocktown. The short time that we are out sea, we get a good amount of things. First, a ship falling from the sky, while also the log post pointing up towards the sky, which, okay, this is new, but also Robin, being the wonderful person that she is, lets us know that an island with a strong magnetic field is causing the log post to point upwards, which, in case you aren't sure or don't know, that's insane when it comes to real life stuff. Like, can you imagine if you were just out at sea one day and your compass just starts pointing upwards towards the sky? You would probably assume the world is ending, and rightfully so. Then we have a short confrontation about claiming treasure of the ship that fell from the sky. But the strangest and most interesting part is the giant silhouettes that appear in the sky. Now, if you read all of this saga, of course we know what it is now. But at the time, this was insane to me. I thought, like, we are going to be now fighting, like, giants again. I thought we were going to be in conflict with giants, and maybe we were going to be dealing with something astronomical that was literally in the sky. That was like the only thing that I could really comprehend, and boy did I kind of get it right. Just a tad bit. And then also the genuine thought when that first appeared was, could these be enemies? Of course, that's usually like the one thing that is always kind of brought up whenever you meet some of these new people in One Piece. Or were they going to be completely different? I was very invested and interested to see how this would play out. Then Mocktown happened, and it's amazing, and it's probably one of it is my favorite part of Jaya. Starting with the whole bar scene, Luffy being tested to see if him, of all people we have met, are worthy, quote, worthy, of joining this new age of pirates. Then there was everyone laughing at him at the bar for him asking about Sky Island, or the island that's in the sky, which of course led down to the conversation of this, quote, new age of pirates don't need dreams, or more so, these dreams are worthless due to there being treasures all around them, all the time. Which then of course led to everyone attacking Zoro and Luffy and them duking it out, or more so, them refusing to fight back while everyone was just going to town on them. And this is still one of my more favorite parts of this arc. One being Luffy and Zoro not fighting back, I think speaks more volumes than words ever need to be said. I also love that somewhat small callback to when we first met Shanks with Luffy and how these things are almost coming full circle, it seems. And it kind of, we've known this for a while, right? But it also shows us that Luffy and his crew are on the right path. And the next thing, which in all honesty, again, there's so many like good parts about this, and I keep reiterating that because this is just so damn good, is the small interaction with the person at the bar, which we now know is Blackbeard. People's dreams don't ever end is something that I didn't think I needed to see or express till it happened. Again, this arc's best moments come from these small in-between moments that goes back to me wondering kind of what I was saying earlier. If Blackbeard joined the Seven Warlords, if he were to join, would it be for good or bad intentions? Like, again, reiterating the folk tales of Blackbeard in real life, depending on where you are, you get good or bad representation from him. And during this interaction with Luffy, I genuinely feel that he's on the good side of being a pirate, right? Now, of course, being a good pirate is a very loose thing in general, because a lot of the good stuff pirates end up doing, whether that's in folktales or even in One Piece, they do leave a path of usual problems in the way. So if Blackbeard himself were to become one of the warlords, it's one of those things where I'm interested to see how that dynamic is going to be played out. Because that whole thing with him just talking about people's dreams don't ever end. If someone who really believes in that statement, who it seems like Blackbeard really is attached to that statement, could they actually be a bad person? And I may be wrong about that, and I kind of hope I am not. I do think from all the context, even though there's not a lot of context, for the small amount of context we've gotten with Blackbeard, and especially like his dream statement, I don't think he's on the bad side of this pirate world, but I may be completely wrong. We also learn of the story of Noland, thanks to Robin finding out about this, and we find out this information through Cricket. Noland traveled to a city that was all gold, but when they returned to that city, it was no more, and there was no trace of said city anymore, which in turn, the king got pissed and sent Noland to his death for, quote, lying about the city of gold. Now, the Cricket introduction was cool. Learning about the Sky Island, or at least the City of Gold, is such a cool touch, while also making our way to get there a more interesting dynamic to go and get. It wasn't the usual, let's just climb up there and see if it's up there. I like that, and the Going Merry got a nice little upgrade, and I want to kind of touch on this now, because the Going Merry has been going through a lot lately, and I'm very interested to see how the Going Merry continues, because, like I said, it's been dealt some damage. So I'm wondering if these small upgrades will come back and bite us in the butt down the road. And then we had the fight with Luffy fighting all those guys and teaching them a lesson and getting the gold back. I know why he didn't fight them in the first place, but just because of how much of an a-hole they were being, I very much enjoyed them getting the lesson they deserved. Jaya, for being the opening sub-arc for this overall huge arc, or not even huge, one of the more better arcs that I have read so far, was everything I could have hoped for and more. It felt like a non-stop banger, page after page after page after page, and all these damn spreads, man, which will become a common thing across this arc. Everything was wonderful. It captures the most insane moments in such breathtaking fashion. I love the introduction of Blackbeard, who I can't wait to find out more about and see where their goals, or see where he aligns down the road. And it probably has my most favorite moment of this whole arc too, which also could possibly end up being one of my more favorite moments in all of One Piece. Or at least for right now, it is my favorite moment of One Piece so far. And then we finally see Robin getting some action in here, and she's as an amazing person so far here, and I've been loving her every moment we have gotten with her. This set up what was to come in truly such a great and wonderful fashion, and I really wouldn't have wanted it any other way, because this was a beautiful piece of art. Now again, this overall arc is, at this particular point, the shortest I have read. Jaya set the foundation for this arc, and somehow Skypiea took that and built a masterpiece out of it. The best way I kind of want to do this, unlike Jaya, is start at the beginning and kind of go from there. Starting off, we are attacked, but thanks to Pierre, we are saved. He drops knowledge for us to understand what happened and why we really couldn't handle this fight just yet, while also giving us a whistle to call him if we ever needed him. Then we get to Heaven's Gate, but we don't pay that entrance fee and continue to Angel Island. But because we didn't pay, we are marked as criminals, which isn't something new to us at all throughout this journey, but this time things are completely different. This sort of intro area shows us that we are very out of our element for what may or may not come ahead. There is kind of like this adjustment period. We need to get used to the air, the battle, these new mechanics that we aren't used to, especially when it was demonstrated in that small attack, was kind of the biggest red flag we could see of what is to come ahead of this arc, because we really needed to be ready for almost anything. But at the end of the day, we kind of weren't. Our whole time spent on Angel Island kind of felt like, or could have been chopped up to, this place has a different set of rules, but also there's a lot of undertones of things that, by today's standard, we should kind of find wrong. Coin's introduction alongside her father's really showcases this, but shows us this place is very, and I mean very, strict about what is said and the manner it is said in. Then we had Nami sitting out on her own for a bit, which led us to knowing about the god Enel, which almost, as we come to know this, we see that people are just straight up afraid of this god. Then kind of very shortly after, we learn about how this quote god stuff really works with Enel. We basically get split into two teams, now one being Chopper, Robin, Nami, and Zoro, then the other team is Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp. Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp learn from Coin that she basically betrayed them because of Enel's will to do things, and if she doesn't do what he says, she will face death, which almost at the same moment a lightning bolt comes down and almost kills her. But our guy Pierre, who saves us yet again, leads us to the upper yard. Now I want to kind of change this kind of a bit. I usually go plot point to give you what I feel during those specific moments. But for this stretch of going up to the upper yard to Enel survival game to battle with Luffy versus Enel, I kind of want to freeball this a bit. I think this stretch of writing is again what kind of One Piece feels like it should be, and why it makes it great, and why it's been a wonderful story altogether till this particular point. First are these themes. Now the one I want to talk about, which I think One Piece did a great job on, is faith. I respect anyone who has a religious outtake. It doesn't matter who or what you worship. It's fine by me as long as you don't disrespect other people. And I kind of stand by that. I think everyone should kind of live by those standards, that you should just respect people for what they want to believe in. But the way it was handled here, you could tell it was handled with such care. It touched on the good, the bad, and the ugly in ways that I believe wouldn't hurt someone to read, but also covered them so people can get a good understanding of where some of these people were and are coming from during this stretch of work. Also, the way it handled the way other people view these things in this certain light was also done very well. There's also the other themes of being oppressed and colonialism and the conflict that can and does come with those things. And of course, Oda managed to handle these very hard-hitting topics that I don't think a lot of people can convey, but he handled them in such a very charismatic way. For example, the Nolan tale being confirmed and us fully understanding what happened with Nolan on his journey here, and all of the hardships that came with his trip to Jaya, it gave us the perspective and standpoints from someone in his position and doesn't hold back on his wrongs that he did, while also showcasing that sometimes things take time, and also very, very heavily emphasize that sometimes the most important thing in life is communication. Taking or finding a way to talk to people goes a long way, whether that's in fiction or in real life. And like, for example, if we were all able to sit down and have a fair discussion about things, a lot of problems could be solved, depending on who you're talking to. We also learned a lot more of the Sky Island a lot here, and as well as Enel, which we kind of will be discussing a little bit later down the road. Now, the writing aside for this bit, The survival games was really something else from a battle standpoint. A huge part of this manga, I felt like we've been in charge of the battlefield. Or at least everything kind of felt like an even playing field. But now we are literally going up against a quote god. And this is completely new territory for us as we're fighting in the sky. And these new dials add this extra layer of combat that I didn't think would happen. The strategies that have happened here with the dials were, in my opinion, very cool. It felt like the normal head-on approach that we've been kind of doing wasn't going to fly this time around. And it was actually the worst thing we could do. And I love that Lucy sat a good part of this conflict out till, well, you know, the very end. It really allowed our other crewmates to show their stuff. But we also get to see Robin and Chopper more in action, which finally I was so happy about since they were just added to us. And again, getting to know these lovely crew members is always a plus in my books, whether that's in combat or a few small, short interactions we get with them. Another thing I want to touch on in this is the jungle setting really added that extra layer of planning and combat that made all the stuff about the battle royale thing really cool and interesting, and added that extra layer of uniqueness to this arc. Then the moment of, you know, the battle winding down is the Enel and Luffy showdown. Enel's build up to this point was well worth all the effort, and the horrible things we have come to know about him is, for better or worse, adds a lot of depth to him. And in every sense of the word, he was worth being our final fight, or the final boss of this arc. The funny thing, however, going into this battle, in the back of my head, I always thought, like, Luffy should have the upper hand, right? You know, usual for manga and fictional stories, logic sometimes isn't always there. Of course, we've seen that plenty of times here. We see it in other pieces of fiction as well. And sometimes in fictional worlds, certain aspects don't work in the way you think they do. But to my somewhat surprise, it was right on course that, well, lightning doesn't work against rubber. But even though that was the case, Enel had other options to fight. And that made this whole Luffy vs. Enel thing very interesting. I think besides him and Croc, they have both really made Luffy fight or think outside the box for their battle. But I think Enel did a great job. Even though in a realistic standpoint, he should have been outclassed in this battle. Now, my dear old Luffy, I've said this in like the last 2 videos of this manga journey, and I will probably be saying it even more so down the road. Luffy does deserve to be our pirate captain. Another battle where Luffy's limits got really tested and he comes out on top. But also, again, Luffy fights for so much more than what is told to us right in front of us. From him wanting to protect his crewmates to making sure Cricket knew that Nolan's story really was real and he was never wrong for his dreams. To the dang ringing of the bell that has brought so much pain and suffering through the lands of Jaya and Skypiea, to now being a sound of hope and that things are going to be alright, was some of the best reading, dialogue, scenes, whatever the case you want to call it, that has happened so far. I really don't know how much more emphasis I can put on saying that I love Luffy with every single arc that we get with him, and he just keeps getting better and better and better. And it's kind of getting to a point where it's getting really repetitive, because I feel like with every updated vlog of my manga journey, I just keep reiterating that point. But the thing of it is, it's the truth. Luffy just keeps getting better with every passing arc so far. And to be completely honest with you, by the time I catch up, I probably won't be as surprised to say that he may honestly be one of my more favorite characters, not only in just One Piece, but of all time. And he's climbing that ladder pretty fast right now. The way Skypiea comes to a close as well is kind of breathtaking. All the conflict and the pain and the suffering, all of the loss that has happened, everything comes to an end eventually. Of course, life can't be replaced, but we are able to build a better future for tomorrow. And I'm glad that everyone is able to close this chapter of this journey and start working towards that better future of tomorrow, because it will, and it is, going to take a lot of work. Also, I'm very interested in what shape or form we will see Enel again, because he gets away to an extent, but I think we will see him again down the road. But in what capacity, I'm not truly sure. Also, I think it's kind of funny, or not really funny, I kind of want to add this in here too. Roger, who and what are you, my guy? I every time we find more details about you, I get more and more complexed. I think is the best way to put it. And last thing before we start wrapping up, I kind of want to talk about Whitebeard. Now, I like Whitebeard. I think what he's fighting for and what he ends up doing near the end speaks a lot of how much growth he went through on this trip, with him and with everybody else. However, he is a bit of a hollow head if you ask me, but I sort of get it. I think of course his redemption near the end really saved him for me, but at times he was sort of a pain to deal with. Skypiea was breathtaking and beautiful. It takes everything I love about this story so far, and everything that I've been loving about just One Piece in general, and it was just great. It was just that amazing. I've been sold on One Piece since the end of East Blue because that first arc kind of sealed the deal for me, but I really do think that this arc will be the arc I come back to and say, yeah, this is the one that made me really believe and fall that level of deep love for this journey that I'm going on. Sky Island Saga right now, to this particular point, is my favorite arc, and I've loved almost every single moment from it. Okay, kind of like a short little theories, predictions, and all that fun stuff at the end that we usually like to add here. I guess the first one I want to go off or kind of do is, or reiterate, I guess I was kind of right about the government thing having their dirty little hands on what's happening in this world of One Piece. It's just that we need to, I guess, get clarification, I guess is the best word to put it, as to what extent is this hand that they have. Obviously, they have control of the Marines. I think that's like a no-brainer. But what else are they hiding in this world? And it kind of goes back to that one theory I kind of made up or thought of. Is the One Piece, is it something else? Is it not necessarily treasure, but is it something of an entity altogether? And I wonder if they know about it and they're trying to cover it, or maybe they don't know about it and they're trying to find it for themselves, which wouldn't be all that surprising because governments are usually a-holes altogether. They hide a lot of information from the public. I'm interested to see how this all starts to pan out down the road. Again, I kind of want to reiterate this. I personally think at this point, Blackbeard may be on our side, but at the same time, what are his particular goals is something I'm more wondering about. And maybe we will see him join the Seven Warlords, but if he does go down that route, what is his plan to do so? Because again, this feels like it could be a very good thing or a very awful thing, but knowing our luck, this will somehow be the worst thing imaginable for us. But I kind of want to go back, or almost clenching my pearls as I say this. I go back to the Blackbeard and him talking about dreams. It really does feel in that particular moment between Blackbeard and Luffy, it feels like that's Blackbeard at his true and purest form. And usually when it comes to dialogues and stuff like that, you can kind of get a vibe of people in reading, video games, whatever the case is. You can get a vibe off someone in the way they articulate themselves and the way they express it. And I find it very hard to align myself with saying that Blackbeard will be a truly bad person. I kind of think that he may be on the opposite side, of course, at one point or another, because I think like at the end of the day, everyone wants the One Piece, but I don't think he is outright going to be the worst person we come against, I feel like. And again, I could be completely wrong about that. I really hope I'm not wrong. I do hope that he still aligns himself with us, even if we eventually have to battle him one day for the One Piece. I'm just, again, like, it just feels that somebody who would be so passionate about just dreams in general would be a horrible person. Now, if he made like a side remark or was snarky when he gave off that sentence, statement, whatever you want to call it, yeah, we can, we could debate whether or not he's actually a bad person or not, because that would go against him. But I'm finding it very hard to say that Blackbeard, as of right now, is a fully bad enemy to us. But only time can tell, I guess, and we will see. Now for some character rankings, but now we have Chopper and Robin in the mix, so let's kind of do this, shall we? I think the no-brainer is Luffy's my favorite, so he has my #1 spot. Then I think I still give it to Zoro at #2. #3, I think, goes to Robin now. I'm a simp, what can I say? Number 4 is Nami, 5 is Usopp, 6 would be Chopper, and last is Sanji at this particular time. Again, as I say this, I love this whole crew a whole lot, and I think they're all so very well written so far, and they continue to grow and improve with every arc, that at times this is kind of hard for me to really rank them because I've just been loving all of them all so much. I really have. I'm loving this journey so much, and I think I can say now, without a shadow of a doubt at least, for now I'm just really happy to be doing these vlog recaps, whatever we're going to call them, where I just sit down and just talk about One Piece. I'm having a blast doing it, and I keep falling in love with every arc that I keep reading. And I can't wait to see what's next, and what will continue to be happening in further arcs. This is the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, maybe leave a comment talking about your favorite arc to this particular point. And then also, as a reminder, please don't spoil anything. Not only for me, but for other people who may just be reading at the same level or at the same particular point that we are at right now. So please be nice to everyone. Remember, drink your water, get your steps in, check your posture, and always remember you're important. And until the next one, I will catch you all later.